Be me. Callan, 35. When this all started, got a decent job in network engineering. Not glamorous, but it paid the bills and then some. Married to Jocelyn for 10 years. 2 kids. Finn, who was 8, and Alora. 6. We had the whole package. The house in the suburbs. 2 cars. Family vacations once a year. I thought I was doing everything right. I worked hard. Came home. Helped with homework. Coached Finn's Little League team on Saturdays. Fixed the leaky faucet. Mowed the lawn. Handled the finances. I was the reliable one. The bedrock. I figured that's what a husband and a father was supposed to be. Stable. Present. Turns out that was the problem. The cracks started small. Jocelyn started making comments. Little digs here and there. My friend from yoga is going to Bali for a month to find herself. Did you see that couple on Instagram? They sold everything to live in a van. They're so free. I'd just nod along. That's nice. Honey. What was I supposed to say? We have kids. A mortgage. We can't just go find ourselves in a van. She started talking a lot about energy. Vibes. Living authentically. She told me my stability was stifling her spirit. I didn't get it. I thought stability was the goal. It's what you build so your kids can be safe and happy. Then Riker showed up. He was a freelance graphic designer and life enthusiast, which I later learned meant unemployed and living off a trust fund that was quickly running out. He had tattoos, a man bun, and talked a lot about mindfulness while constantly checking his phone. Jocelyn met him at some downtown art walk event she started going to by herself. Suddenly, he was always around. She'd bring him up in conversation. Riker thinks we should all try ayahuasca. Riker says the 9 to 5 is a form of modern slavery. I bit my tongue for as long as I could. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night. I think I came home from a long day at work. Had to fix a server crash. I was exhausted. Walked in and the house was buzzing. Jocelyn and Riker were in the kitchen blending some god-awful green smoothie. The kids were watching TV by themselves in the living room. Dinner was nowhere in sight. I asked what was going on, and Jocelyn gave me this look. A mix of pity and annoyance. She pulled me into the bedroom for a talk. This was it. The big one. She told me she couldn't do it anymore. This life. This suburban prison. She said I was a good man. But I was emotionally unavailable. That I showed my love through acts of service. Like fixing the dishwasher. But she needed passionate connection. She talked about toxic masculinity. How I never shared my feelings. How my stoicism was a wall she couldn't break through. I just stared at her. I shared my feelings by coming home every single night. By making sure they had everything they needed. Then she dropped the bomb. She was in love with Riker. He understood her soul. He challenged her to grow. She wanted a divorce. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. 10 years of my life building this family, and it was being dismantled because I was too reliable. I asked about the kids. What about Finn and Alora? She had an answer for that. 2. It would be better for them to see their mother happy and living her truth than miserable in a loveless marriage. It was textbook scripting. I felt like I was talking to a self-help blog. Not my wife. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers and paperwork. She moved out and took the kids to a rental property. A few towns over, Riker moved in with her a week later. My lawyer, a tired-looking guy who'd seen it all, gave me the grim reality. He told me to prepare for the worst. Family court, he said, wasn't about what was fair. It was about narratives. He warned me that my hard work and stability would be twisted and used against me. I didn't believe him. I thought the truth has to matter. Right. I was wrong. So wrong. The court date arrived. I wore my best suit. I had documents, pay stubs, showing I was the sole provider. schedules of the kids' activities that I was always involved in, photos from our family trips. I had facts. Jocelyn had a story. She sat on the stand crying. Not loud. Hysterical crying. But quiet. Victim tears. It was an Oscar-worthy performance. She told the judge, I was a workaholic who was never home. Those long hours I put in to get a promotion so we could afford a bigger house. That was me abandoning my family. The weekends I spent doing yard work and home repairs. That was me avoiding emotional connection. My quiet, calm demeanor. It wasn't stability. It was emotional neglect. She claimed I was a cold, unfeeling presence in the house. She painted a picture of herself as a lonely, isolated mother struggling to raise 2 children with a husband who was little more than a ghost who paid the bills. Then her lawyer brought up Riker. He was presented as a positive male role model. He was emotionally intelligent. He was present with the children. He was teaching them about art and creativity. My jaw was on the floor. This guy had known my kids for a few months. He was a professional slacker. My lawyer did his best. He presented the evidence, the financial records, the testimony from my boss about my work ethic. But facts are boring. Jocelyn's story was a drama. The judge, a woman in her late 50s, looked at me with this expression of deep disappointment, as if I had personally failed all of mankind. The verdict came down like a guillotine. Jocelyn was granted full physical custody. The reasoning was that the children needed stability with their primary caregiver, and she had been the one handling their day-to-day emotional needs. I was granted visitation every other weekend. I was ordered to pay a crippling amount of child support and alimony, and the kicker, she got the house. The house I had put the down payment on, the house whose mortgage I had paid every single month. I was being kicked out of my own home, ordered to pay for my replacement, and was only allowed to see my children 4 days a month. I walked out of that courtroom feeling like I had been hollowed out. The system wasn't just broken. It was a weapon pointed directly at men like me. The next phase of my life was pure survival. I found a small, depressing 1-bedroom apartment across town, the kind with beige walls and that lingering smell of stale cigarettes. The first time I had the kids over for my weekend. It was awful. The apartment felt small and sad compared to their home. I tried my best. I bought a new video game console. We ordered pizza, but they were quiet, distant. Alora asked me why I didn't love them anymore. Finn, always more direct, asked if it was true that I thought he was a distraction from my work. It felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I realized Jocelyn wasn't just leaving me. She was actively poisoning my relationship with my own children. I tried to explain, to tell them my side. But how do you explain adult failures to an 8-year-old? The financial strain was immense. More than half my paycheck was gone before I even saw it. Alimony, child support. I was working overtime just to make rent and keep the lights on in my sad little apartment. Meanwhile, I'd see pictures on Jocelyn's social media. Her and Riker at some music festival. Riker driving my old SUV, the one I'd bought for family road trips. A picture of them all at a fancy restaurant for dinner with a caption about making memories. It was all funded by me. I was paying for the man who replaced me to live in my house with my kids and my ex-wife. The bitterness was like acid in my stomach every single day. The worst part was the drop-offs and pickups every other Friday. I'd have to pull up to the house, my house. Sometimes Riker would answer the door, shirtless. With a smug look on his face, he'd call me man or dude in this condescending way. Hey man, kids are almost ready. I could see the lawn getting overgrown. The flower beds Jocelyn used to love were full of weeds. One time, I saw my toolbox, the one my dad gave me, left out in the rain to rust. It was a slow, painful process of watching everything I had built be neglected and destroyed. The kids started changing. Finn? who used to be so excited to tell me about school, became withdrawn. His grades started slipping. Alora, once a happy, bubbly little girl, was often quiet and anxious. When I'd ask them about their week, their answers became vague. It was okay. Mom was busy. Riker had friends over. A few months in, probably around early spring, Finn let something slip. I picked them up on a Friday, and he looked exhausted. Dark circles under his eyes. I asked if he was feeling okay. He just mumbled, "Riker's band practice late again." My heart stopped. Band? He told me Riker had started a band with his friends. They practiced in the garage 2 or 3 nights a week. They played until 1:00 or 2:00 inches the morning on school nights. I tried to talk to Jocelyn about it. I called her. Kept my voice as calm as possible. I told her the kids needed their sleep, that the late-night band practice was not okay. She laughed at me. She told me I was being controlling, trying to micromanage her life from afar. She said Riker was a creative person, and I wouldn't understand his process. She accused me of being jealous of his passion. Then she told me to only contact her about emergencies, and hung up. I felt completely powerless. I was legally bound to hand over my children to a woman who was letting her deadbeat boyfriend keep them up all night. I called my lawyer. He told me what I already knew, without concrete proof of neglect. A judge would see my complaint as a bitter ex trying to cause trouble. She said wouldn't be enough. I needed something more, so I started documenting everything. Every time the kids showed up tired, every time they were wearing clothes that were a size too small or had a stain on them, every comment they made about not having a proper dinner because Mom and Riker ordered takeout for themselves. I kept a detailed journal. It was a grim, depressing log of my children's slow decline. The situation escalated. One weekend, Alora came to me with a scraped knee that was clearly infected. It was red and swollen. I asked her what happened. She said she fell off her bike a few days ago. I asked if her mom cleaned it or put a bandage on it. She shook her head. Mommy was arguing with Riker. She told me to just run some water on it. The rage I felt was cold and sharp. I took her to an urgent care clinic immediately. The doctor gave her antibiotics and told me it was a good thing I brought her in when I did. I took pictures of the prescription, the doctor's notes, added it to the journal. When I dropped them off on Sunday, I confronted Jocelyn at the door. I showed her the prescription. I told her she had neglected Alora's injury. She didn't even look guilty. She got defensive. She claimed I was overreacting, that it was just a scrape. She accused me of trying to undermine her parenting. Riker came to the door behind her, put his arm around her. He told me to chill out. Duda, I saw my daughter peeking from behind the door, looking scared. I knew right then I couldn't win by confronting them directly. It just made them close ranks and would make things worse for the kids. I got back in my car, my hands shaking with a fury I had never felt before. This wasn't just a bad situation anymore. This was dangerous. I had to get my kids out of there. But I knew I only had one shot to do it right. I just had to wait for them to make a mistake big enough that even the biased system couldn't ignore it. And I knew with people like Jocelyn and Riker, it was only a matter of time. The wait was agonizing. Every other weekend felt like a rescue mission. I'd pick up my kids, feed them proper meals, make sure their homework was done, wash their clothes, and try to cram 2 weeks of parenting into 48 hours. Then I'd have to send them back into the chaos. My journal was getting thick. Entries about Finn missing his dental appointment, Alora's lunch money being spent on Jocelyn's cigarettes, the power being shut off for a day because the bill wasn't paid despite the money I was sending them. It was a meticulous record of incompetence and selfishness. The big mistake came on a Wednesday in late autumn. I got a call at work. The number was from the kids' elementary school. My heart hammered in my chest. You always assume the worst. It was the school nurse. She sounded concerned. She told me Finn had shown up to school looking unwell. When she checked on him, he admitted he hadn't eaten breakfast or dinner the night before. He told her there was no food in the house except Riker's beer. The nurse had also noticed a faded bruise on his arm. Finn said he got it when Riker grabbed him to pull him out of the way during one of their arguments. This was it. This was the flag. The school was legally obligated to report this to Child Protective Services. The nurse told me she was making the call right after she hung up with me. She said she was calling me as a courtesy since I was listed as the emergency contact. I thanked her. My voice hoarse. I told my boss I had a family emergency and left work immediately. I drove straight to my lawyer's office. I walked in without an appointment and put the journal down on his desk. I told him what the school nurse had said. I told him CPS was now involved. For the first time, I saw a flicker of something other than tired resignation in his eyes. He said, "This is our chance." A third-party report from a mandated reporter like a school nurse is the gold standard. They can't dismiss this. We filed an emergency motion for temporary custody that same afternoon. The next 24 hours were a whirlwind. A social worker was assigned to the case, a serious-looking woman who didn't seem impressed by anyone's stories. She just wanted facts. She visited Jocelyn's house unannounced that evening. I found out later what she walked into. The house was a wreck. Dirty dishes piled in the sink. Trash overflowing. The whole place smelled like stale beer and weed. Riker was there. And apparently he got belligerent with the social worker, demanding to know who she was and telling her to get off their property. Jocelyn tried to smooth things over, making excuses about being in the middle of cleaning. The social worker interviewed the kids separately. They were scared, but they told the truth. They talked about the yelling, the lack of food, the late-night parties. The next morning, there was an emergency hearing. It was a different judge this time. An older man with a no-nonsense demeanor. Jocelyn showed up looking flustered. Riker was nowhere to be seen. He'd bailed at the first sign of real trouble. The social worker presented her report. It was devastating. She described the condition of the home as unstable and potentially hazardous. She detailed the interviews with the children, quoting their fears about the constant arguing. She mentioned Riker's hostile behavior. Then my lawyer presented my evidence: the journal, the doctor's report about Alora's infected knee, the school's attendance record showing how many days the kids had missed. It was an avalanche of facts. Hard, undeniable proof of neglect. Jocelyn tried to play the victim again. She started crying, claiming I was harassing her, that I had turned the school against her. She said she was just a single mother doing her best. The judge wasn't buying it. He looked at her over his glasses. "You're not a single mother, madam. You have a co-parent who has been systematically shut out while you allowed your children to live in a chaotic environment. Your best was not good enough." He granted my motion. I was awarded immediate, temporary sole custody. The judge ordered Jocelyn to vacate the house within 30 days, so it could be sold and scheduled a final custody hearing. I walked out of the courtroom with a court order in my hand, feeling the first sense of relief in almost a year. That evening, I went with a police officer to pick up my kids. It wasn't a request. It was an enforcement. Jocelyn was a wreck, screaming, crying, accusing me of stealing her babies. The kids were confused and scared, but they came with me. I got them back to my little apartment, and for the first time, it felt like a home. I made them their favorite dinner, mac and cheese. We watched a movie. For the first time in months, I saw them relax. I saw the anxiety drain from their faces. That night, tucking them into bed, Finn just hugged me and wouldn't let go. He whispered, "Are we staying here now?" I told him yes. I promised him he was safe. The final hearing was a formality. Jocelyn showed up alone. Her lawyer had dropped her because she couldn't pay him. She tried to represent herself. It was a disaster. She rambled, contradicted herself, and blamed everyone but herself. The judge made the custody order permanent. I had sole legal and physical custody. Jocelyn was granted supervised visitation once a month at a designated facility. She would have to pay to use it, and she was ordered to pay me child support. The amount was pathetic. based on her earning potential at a minimum wage job. But it was the principle of it. The roles were officially reversed. The house was sold. After paying off the mortgage, the remaining equity was split. It wasn't much, but it was enough. With my kids back, my life started to rebuild. I used my share of the house money as a down payment on a new place. A small but clean townhouse in a good school district. Closer to my work. The kids thrived. Their grades shot back up. They made new friends. The light came back into their eyes. Finn joined the school's robotics club. Alora started taking dance classes. Our weekends were no longer about recovery missions. They were just normal. Happy weekends. We went hiking. Visited museums. Built Lego sets that took over the entire living room floor. It was quiet. It was stable. It was everything Jocelyn had claimed to hate. And it was everything we needed. I focused all my energy on them. On creating a secure, loving home. Dating wasn't even on my radar. I had learned my lesson. My trust in people was gone. My kids were my entire world. Jocelyn, on the other hand, spiraled. She showed up for the first couple of supervised visits. It was awkward. The kids were polite but distant. There was nothing for them to talk about. Then she stopped coming. It was too expensive. Too humiliating. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that she was living on a friend's couch. Riker was long gone. Of course, she worked a series of dead-end jobs. Barista. Retail. Delivery driver. Nothing lasted. She had traded her family and her home for a passionate connection with a deadbeat, and when he left, she had nothing. About 6 months after the final court date, maybe a little longer, it was a Thursday evening. The kids were doing their homework at the kitchen table. I was making dinner. It was a peaceful domestic scene. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door. And there she was. I almost didn't recognize her. She was thin. Her hair was messy. The expensive clothes were gone, replaced by a worn-out hoodie and jeans. She looked tired, beaten down by life. All the arrogance and self-righteousness were gone. In their place was just desperation. She started talking before I could say anything. A torrent of words. How sorry she was. How she had made a terrible mistake. She told me she realized now that Riker was a parasite. That he had used her. She said she finally understood what she had thrown away. The stability. The safety. A good man who loved her. Then the tears started. Real. Ugly. Desperate tears. Caitlin. Please. She begged. Her voice cracking. I know I messed up. I was a fool. But I've learned my lesson. Please, let me come home. We can be a family again. For the kids, let's just go back to how it was. I just stood there, looking at her. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel anything at all. It was like looking at a stranger. I let her finish. I waited until her plea trailed off into sobs. I thought about the nights I had laid awake, staring at the ceiling of my apartment, crushed by injustice. I thought about my daughter's infected knee. My son's face when he told me there was no food in the house. I thought about everything I had lost and everything I had fought so hard to get back. I looked her dead in the eye. Jocelyn, I said, and my voice was perfectly calm. Perfectly even. You don't have a home here anymore. My family is right here inside this house. It's me and my children. You are not a part of it. I continued. You wanted a life of excitement and passion. You made your choice. This is the consequence. Go live with it. Her face crumbled. It was the look of someone who finally understood that there were no more second chances. The game was over. She had lost. I didn't yell. I didn't raise my voice. I just slowly and deliberately closed the door in her face. I heard her cry out on the other side. But I turned the deadbolt. From the living room, I heard Alana laugh at something Finn had said. I walked back into the kitchen. the sound of my children's laughter filling the quiet space where my old life used to be, and I smiled. The justice wasn't loud or dramatic. It was the quiet click of a lock and the sound of a happy, peaceful home. My family, my victory,